All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate you joining me for this little chat this evening. Um, just have a couple quick thoughts on how to observe Lent as busy parents. It feels like Lent from 2020 never really stopped for a lot of us. So I know a lot of people are going into this Lent already feeling kind of drained. And so I just wanted to share a few ideas and a few thoughts on how to maybe approach this Lent and how to, hopefully choose some practices to help you get more out of it, so you're not feeling so exhausted and down and beaten by Lent. So I think the first thing to think about is what does the church actually require of us during Lent? Okay, there's three things: prayer, fasting, almsgiving. So all these posts about Lent, all these ideas, they fall into one of these three things. Okay? And the church gives us some very specific guidelines, especially for fasting. Okay, so the modern fasting requirements are simply Ash Wednesday and Good Friday are obligatory days of fasting and abstinence for Catholics. In addition, Fridays during Lent are obligatory days of abstinence. The norms for fasting are obligatory from age 18 to 59. When fasting, a person is permitted to eat one full meal as well as two smaller meals that together are not equal to one full meal. The norms concerning abstinence from meat are binding upon members of the church from age 14 onwards. Okay, so that's the bare minimum. That's what the church is asking you to do. So Ash Wednesday and all the Fridays, no meat. And on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday, fasting, which just means two tiny meals, one regular meal. So everything else that you do for fasting is bonus if you're doing more than that. Okay? So a lot of people think they got to give up this, they got to give up this, they have to do this, they have to do that. And if they can't, they feel that they're failing at the fasting requirements. But the modern fasting requirements, really aren't that strenuous. You can do them unless there's really major medical issues. You're older than 60 and you're not in great health. Even nursing women. I mean, again, these aren't like super strenuous things. If you go back a little bit further, if you want to do fasting requirements, say before 1962, things are a little bit stricter. There's fasting on every day. So the two small meals, one main meal, every day of Lent. No meat on all the Fridays, no meat Ash Wednesday. So things are a little bit stricter. No hard alcohol. But again, it's not, but you don't even have to do that, okay? You just have the modern requirements. So first, just remember that everything else that you hear about stuff that you have to give up, it's, you know what I mean? It's all bonus on top of that bare minimum. So if all you can do for fasting is those things, which you can find on the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops website, they have a lot of stuff up right now for Lent. If that's all you can do, that's fine. That's all you have to do. That's the bare minimum. Everything above and beyond that is bonus. So again, you want for Lent to do a little bit more, to do a little bit extra, but that's the baseline. Any other fasting you do, you can get a little bit creative with it. So do you want to give up sweets? Do you want to give up one particular type of sweet? Do you want to give up a certain type of drink? Again, you can give up bad behaviors or habits, things like that. Those are other ways of fasting. It's better to pick, say, one or maybe two, like one behavior, like one sweet food, and really focus on those rather than saying, I'm going to give up all these things and then fail miserably. If you're really stressed, if you've had a really hard year, if you feel like there's really nothing else you can do, just do the minimum and maybe one thing. And that's still, there you go. You're ahead of the game. And you're going to get a lot of growth and satisfaction out of that when you can come through Lent and say, yes, I did these things. the church, when she lays down these rules for us on how to observe these things, she's laying down rules not just for us in America going through COVID in 2020. She's laying, these came out, I believe these rules are, came out after 62, the most recently codified in 1983, for the whole world. So, that can be for anybody, anywhere, under any circumstances. So she expects that we can kind of do that. And if we can do a little bit more, then that's great, okay? So again, don't overwhelm yourself with things. Just pick a few things and do them really well, especially in fasting. I just feel like people get so overwhelmed with the whole fasting thing. Another thing is it can be so helpful to choose something that you give up as a family. Our family always gives up sweets, always, all of us. It's not even really an option. We have older kids. My oldest daughter's 18. I say you're technically an adult. It's up to you. But like she's in our house under our rules. She can't be bringing food in that's junk food and eating it in front of us. What she does when she's out of our house is up to her. But we all give up sweets. And that's so helpful because we're all holding each other accountable. So if you find it really hard to pick like this one thing for yourself and stick with it, or a couple things, then do something as a family. What's something that you can all give up as a family? Maybe you all really like, really sweetened like fruit punch. Maybe just give up fruit punch, all of you, or give up a soda, or give up, if you normally have cookies in the house, then give up, bringing Oreos home, all of you. And then you can all help each other through it. And I think that helps a lot. It's not just on you. Lent doesn't have to be this personal thing that you're struggling with by yourself. We're supposed to kind of help each other in a community. It's Catholic, it's universal. So when we choose things together, we can help pull together and strengthen ourselves. So again, look at things that you can do as a family. So again, we do sweets and it holds us accountable. Like none of us are going off and sneaking, chocolate chips out of the pantry and pouring them into our mouths, or sneaking out and trying to do something. Like we catch each other, we hold each other accountable, and we want to, my husband and I want to be a good example for our kids. And the older kids really want to be a good example for their younger kids. And of course, everybody wants to rat everybody out and tattle. So consider a fasting, something to fast from as a family, and see if that maybe doesn't help, stick with something. A good thing to do is if you want to have a jar on the table. We haven't done this personally, but I've seen every time someone does a sacrifice, you put a bean in a jar, and then at the end of Lent, you take the jar and you swap out the beans for jelly beans. So it's kind of a tangible way for the kids to see when they're giving up things, when they're making a sacrifice. It adds up, and then it's a good thing, like Christ made the ultimate sacrifice for us, so we get into heaven, and, our kids making these little sacrifices turn into something pretty cool, a bunch of jelly beans. So that's something to keep in mind. Also something to tie into almsgiving, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes, is keep a jar to collect change. So say you give up cursing. If your kids catch you cursing, or you catch yourself saying something, put change in a jar. You catch your kids, doing like having a sweet when they're not supposed to, or doing something they're not supposed to for Lent, have them put, a penny from their piggy bank or whatever in the jar. Again, all that money you save is something that you can give as part of your almsgiving. So again, consider ways that, and it's tangible so that everybody can see, like, oh, we got a lot of change in the jar, we got to do better this week, or got to work on these things. So these are tangible reminders as you're working as a family, and you can encourage one another. That might make it easier to stick with some things. So what else? Oh, I also got a great question, which I think ties into the fasting part, is easy, allergy-friendly Lent meals. Wow. So I have a little bit of experience with it because we're kind of gluten-free, dairy-free in my house, so I've had to sort of tweak things, and so Fridays are always a challenge because if it's pasta, it's got to be gluten-free, and if we're going dairy, then it's got to, at least one of us can't eat it. So I know it can be really stressful to come up with meals, but I think it's good to remember that during Lent, it's okay to have really simple meals. That can maybe be, a specific sacrifice. Rather than picking elaborate meals or trying all these new things, simple meals are fine. And if that's the easiest way to meet your kids' allergies, have everyone eating together, even if you have to make a couple different things, it's easier to make a few simple things for everyone than a lot of elaborate things for everyone. So remember that Lent is a good time to embrace simple meals. You don't want to stress about things. So, I thought about things like, baked potatoes, or soup is really great for Lent. A vegetable broth with some vegetables, or beans, some fish, shrimp. There's different things you can add in depending, again, on what your family's preferences and allergies are. I really like the Monastery Soups book. It has a lot of great seasonal soups, and you kind of think, oh, soup, but there's a lot, and they're very filling, and they're really great for lunch. You can make a lot at once. Again, some of my recommendations, depending on what your kids want to eat. Plain pasta, we put out a lot of pasta just with olive oil and maybe a little Parmesan, maybe no sauces, just the plain pasta. If your kids are going to eat it, if everyone can eat it, yeah, it's a very simple, basic meal, and you wouldn't want to have that all the time, but it's okay. It's Lent, you know what I mean? Offer that up. Eggs are really great to make a meal. Have like omelets for dinner with different fillings. Depending again what your allergies are. Another great resource can be to turn to our brothers and sisters in Eastern rites or even in the Orthodox churches. They practice a much more strict fast. They have to give up a lot of things. They give up, I believe, all dairy, all animal products like eggs. They're much stricter. So if you can find cookbooks or from Byzantine Catholic traditions, Eastern Catholic traditions, possibly Ukrainian, Greek Orthodox or Russian Orthodox churches, things like that, their cookbooks for these seasons will have a ton of food that's all basically a lot of vegetables and things like that. So I don't know if they'll be a lot simpler. I don't have a lot of experience with it, but it could be a good resource if you're looking for things that are allergy-free and good for Lent. All right, so hopefully that helped a little bit in talking with the fasting aspect of Lent. Next, we have prayer. And again, I think we see what people are doing online and we think we have to do this like really elaborate prayer thing. We have to read all these books and we have to do retreats, and everybody and their mother is leading a retreat for Lent. Like, buy my retreat booklet and follow me on these, phone calls 3 times a week and daily emails, and oh my, it's stressful. Like, I get stressed out reading it, and then I'm just like, oh, I must be a horrible person because I don't want to get 50 emails in my inbox and buy this person's 50 book devotional set for Lent. Like, I must be doing it wrong. But you don't have to do that. Again, remember your goal for Lent, it's to be sacrificial, and you want to do a little bit more than what you're used to doing. So let's be honest. How much are you praying in a day? Is it you're not praying every day? Are you praying a little bit? Are you maybe getting in a rosary every so often? Look at what you're honestly doing every single day and then build on that. And every little bit that you do above what you normally do is great. That's good. That's a good thing that you can do for Lent. Start small. Just like with the fasting, you start with the minimum that the church requires and you build on that 1 or 2 small things that you really work at. Same with prayer. Start small. Pick one thing that you're going to really focus on. I personally, one of my New Year's resolutions was to always say the rosary in the morning. And I've been pretty good with it, but I'm just doubling down on that for Lent. I'm not really adding a lot more stuff because this has just been a really hard habit for me to get into. I want to sleep in. I want to do other stuff. I'm just going hardcore on that. And if I throw in other things, maybe some daily mass, watching daily mass, some other things, great, that's bonus. But I have my one thing that I'm really hardcore for myself. And then I have a couple other devotional type activities I've planned to do with my kids and read during our homeschooling time. I'm not going gangbusters. So look at what you're honestly doing every day and then think about maybe one new prayer. Just one. Maybe you just add the Angelus at lunchtime, at noon. Not even like, 6 and 12 and 6 just at lunchtime, or just at 6. Just add it one time. Maybe midway through, add it one more. Or maybe you add one decade of the rosary when you get up in the morning. Or maybe you add 5 minutes sitting in silence. Start small. Because again, if you're not really doing much of anything, or if what you're doing is very small because you're just feeling very frazzled and stressed out, that little bit that you're doing is still, it's great. Just commit to that, because you can always build on that habit once you've started it. If you want a devotional book, there's so many that just have like just a page for a day, or even less than a page. And I can link to a few in the comments then. Those are great. You know, you're not reading huge swaths of anything. It's just a short reading. Again, the Bible, just like commit to reading maybe 2 verses and thinking about it for 5 minutes. Whatever sounds easy to you, but that is more than what you're already doing, is a great place to start, because it's going to help you build a habit that maybe then you can take beyond Lent. Start small. I think it also helps if you have sort of an intention for each day. I find if I have somebody that I want to pray for, or an intention, that really motivates me to want to pray every day. So maybe if you have a few minutes, get a piece of notebook paper and write down a whole bunch of intentions. And then know that, well, if I don't pray today, then I'm missing praying for this person. And if you offer it up as an act for someone else, it might help motivate you a little bit more. But just like I said with the whole fasting thing, it can be a lot easier if you take on this component of prayer as a family. My family prays together most nights, and it's a habit we started a very, very long time ago, when we only had like 3 kids and they were all very small. So it's a habit for us now. And it can sound like a very overwhelming habit, but again, it starts small. And I think Lent's a great time to start. And I have some resources that I can share in the comments below if you want to get started, that I created to help people. But again, just start with maybe prayers at meals. Just prayers at meals. And then maybe before everyone goes to bed, just say a St. Michael prayer. Just something, and not even all that, just like pick a couple things that you do as a family and commit to doing as a family. And your kids, they might fight you a little bit, but you just commit to doing this one small thing. And I think it helps if you want to make it special. Light a candle. It can be battery powered. Light a candle, dim the lights. If you have incense, or it's a scented candle, if you want to get crazy, you can do that. Make it a special time. Maybe set up a little special area where you say these prayers, even if it's just one small prayer as a family said together, and you make it a special thing. That's going to kind of get the kids into it a little bit more. And again, when it becomes a family thing, you're all pulling together. The kids know this is something we're doing as a family for Lent. So you're not going to want to let each other down. Hopefully you're all pulling each other, together to heaven, towards the end of Lent to Easter. All right. So, and again, it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't. If I could tell you, I've written in the past on what it's like to say a rosary with young kids, and it's just nuts. It's just crazy. When we started and everybody was little, we barely got through one decade, and it was nuts. And then we started saying more, and the kids would volunteer to say decades, and I thought, oh, this is great. They're volunteering to say decades. But then it became arguing to say decades and screaming over each other to say parts of the prayer. So it's like a competition then, which isn't really what you want for family prayer time, but that's what it becomes. It becomes this thing. And then people go off on tangents like, why are we praying for this person? What's wrong with them? And so it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't get hung up on being the perfect family, all kneeling together, clutching your rosaries by the fireplace. No, it's not going to be Norman Rockwell. It's going to be how it is, and you just want to get through it to build the habit. And whatever goes wrong, you just offer that up. That's all time off purgatory for you. So, it's fine. It'll be great. Some other things you could do, consider watching Mass more as well. I know we're all kind of sick of watching things, but it's something to do also. There's great videos just of the rosary, or if people saying different devotions. And I find that can be helpful if you have young kids and they're kind of playing quietly, like not killing each other quietly, you can just put these things on and, just say at this time we're going to sit quietly, we're going to color, we're going to, not kill each other. And we're going to listen to this video or this recording of, a Divine Mercy Chapel. You don't have to say anything. You can just sit there, and as long as no one kills each other, it's this nice time. It can be something special. Easy things. We don't want to overthink Lent. Again, so much we overthink. We feel we have to do all these things. We have to do all the crafts. Crafts are great. If you like crafts, seriously, Catholic icing. Go there, get all the Catholic crafts you need. You'll be crafted out. If you hate crafts, if they freak you out, if they make your house a mess, if your kids fight and get glue in their hair, you don't have to do that. That's not part of Lent. Lent is not about crafts. Prayer, fasting, almsgiving. Lastly, try to make it a confession or adoration more if you can. It's always a good thing to add. It's nice to get out of the house by yourself if you can. Gives you a little bit of peace. Extend the same grace to your husband. Let him go out and do the same thing. It can be a blessing in a lot of ways. The goal is just to do more than what you regularly do. And if you're not doing a lot, anything above that is great. So finally, we come to almsgiving. So I mentioned the idea of having a coin jar. You can keep track of when you make a mistake, but you can also just keep a jar out to collect spare change. You can collect items from your pantry to give to a food pantry. You can clean out closets to give to, like, say, Goodwill, Salvation Army. Ask your kids to find things to donate. Even if they pick out things that are kind of junky and you can't really donate them, it's a start. It gives them this idea of pulling things out. And it's a good teachable moment of like, oh, well, I'm glad you pulled out that doll to donate. Do you really think another little girl wants to play with a Barbie that's missing a head and both legs? Why don't we pick out a nicer Barbie that maybe has a head and both legs? And you can also help them think about, getting your kids used to the idea of almsgiving. It doesn't necessarily have to be money that you're giving away. There's a lot of swap groups, free groups on Facebook, Craigslist, things like that, where you can give things away that, people might want. Excuse me. Also, if there's something that you're regularly giving up, like sweets, like if you do decide to give up, say, certain cookies, or maybe every month, or like, I don't know, once a week you go out and maybe give some donuts, or I don't know, there's a certain sweet treat that you enjoy, maybe as a family or as a, the money that you would spend on that, donate that. Also, again, if you go to the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops website, they have some great ideas for almsgiving. There's some very specific collections that are taken up during Lent. Some of us are familiar with Rice Bowl. But there's actually a lot of other subgroups that you might be interested in giving money to. So if you want, you can go on there, you can read about some of these different organizations, and maybe teach your kids about the people that are receiving this money. Again, this money is going to go to feed people that probably don't even get to eat 2 small meals and 1 regular meal, like on a regular day. So it can kind of help your kids with perspective of like what maybe they're being asked to give up and sacrifice for a few days in Lent, and get them involved. If you have items, if they want to sell some things, support that. I know it can be hard right now to get out and do some like charity work. We've done things in homeless populations before. We can't really do that this year. But, again, you can make ideas for the future. But now if all you can do is really read about different populations and raise money, that's still great. And that's a great way to do almsgiving without necessarily, writing a really super huge check, which I think is what we think about, that we have to like give all this money. And it's great. We should give money and sacrifice, but there's other creative ways of giving as well that can be just as appreciated by people. So I guess that's it. I think that's all the ideas I have. I feel like I'm going to keep coughing, so I should probably wrap it up so I don't have like a straight on coughing fit while I'm sitting here. But if you have any other questions, leave them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them. If I miss something and you have some other easy suggestions, leave them as well. I'm not a theologian. I believe this talk was theologically sound, but if I'm way off the rails, then I don't know. Hopefully, don't take any of my bad advice. But it should be fine. This is what my family's been doing for years, and we're all good, I think. But so thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this short little talk on some easy Lent practices for busy parents. And I will see you next time. Bye.